Hey everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for a new video. Today I'm going to share a project with you using a new stencil that I actually designed for Simon Says Stamp's new Cheering For You release. And this is the Sunflower Pattern Layering Stencil set. I wanted to make an edge-to-edge shaker card with this using the pattern as my background for the shaker. So I'm going to walk you through how I created this card and also some of the techniques that I used to embellish it. So I have the stencils here on my desk. There are 5 6x6 stencils that you get in this collection, and these work together to build the pattern that you can see on the packaging on the left of my screen. I'm going to be ink blending on top of a slightly smaller than A2 size piece of cardstock. It's about 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to line that up inside of my Stampin' Stencil mat, and I'm aligning my stencils towards the top of the paper so that I have a little bit more of a border along the bottom of the card, just because that's where I want the stenciling to finish, and then I'll have a sentiment down there. I'm ink blending with the first layer with a light yellow. This is butter. And then I'm going to bring in the second layer of florals, and this is going to be the orange layer. And each layer for the flowers has actually 2 pieces. It has a little bit of shading for each section. So I did the lightest yellow and orange layers first, but then I'll come back in with a slightly darker layer for the yellow and orange. And that's where this stencil layer is coming in next. This is the slightly darker layer for the yellow. So now I'm using some honey ink from the Simon Says Stamp Pawsitively Saturating Collection to add that slightly darker yellow. So you can see how these are layering up. Now before I add any of the extra orange color, I did bring in the leaf layer. And this one also starts the centers of the sunflowers as well. So I'm coloring the leaves with Perfection. This is a nice, beautiful green color. And then I'm going to then color inside the centers of my flowers with a combination of allspice and also woodsy. Those are 2 different brown colors that I thought made up a really nice color for the sunflower centers. Here's where I brought in that second layer for the orange. This is mandarin that I'm using to add that extra detail layer, and I love how these layer up and create that fun texture on the sunflowers. So I'll remove my stencil from the Stampin' Stencil mat, and then that way I can go ahead and work on ink blending around the edges of my paper. I'm using that same butter color that I used to ink blend that first layer of the sunflowers, and that just adds a soft touch of yellow in the background. I also used my white gel pen to add some highlight areas to the centers of each of these sunflowers. This just adds a nice pop, which adds a perfect highlight to them. So once my background was complete, I'm going to work on creating my sentiments. I'm going to be using these reverse birthday wishes on black sentiment strips. These are new from Simon Says Stamp's Cheering For You collection, and these are fantastic for foiling, so that way you can have a black sentiment surrounded by your foil. So I'm going to cut one of these down. They're easy to be able to see in between each of the greetings. There is enough of a shine on the paper that allows you to see that black area and then where the sentiment is. I'm lining up my sentiment strip that I trimmed down with a piece of gold foil from Simon Says Stamp and Thermoweb. And this is going to allow me to run this through my laminator, or in this case my Mink machine. You can use either. And that's going to transfer the foil onto that toner printed sheet and give me this gorgeous sentiment that I can now put on top of my card. I love that black against the gold foil. It just looks so classy. So my background, I wanted to step up a little bit. It looks beautiful as is, but there is this Fresh Balloons embossing folder in the Cheering For You release, and I thought it'd be fun to emboss my stenciling. So this adds just that really cool sunflower texture in the background, and I love how it really adds some depth to the stenciling. Now I'm turning this into an edge-to-edge shaker, so I do need to cut a piece of plastic down to be slightly larger than my background panel, and then I'm putting adhesive around all 4 sides of my panel. I will remove the release paper from only 3 of those sides, however, because we still need to have an area that we can pour sequins into. This is just forming our pocket that the sequins will be enclosed in. So with that plastic, I'll fold it over the paper and then into that adhesive that I've exposed, and this will form the pocket, creating that perfect little encasement for the sequins. If I do have any excess plastic, I do trim it up with my scissors just to give myself a really nice clean edge. I don't want that plastic hanging off the sides. So really simple to just trim that down so it's nice and flush. And then we have a little pocket here that I can pour these new Garden Bloom sequins into. These are also part of the Cheering For You collection. these yellow and green colors match so nice with the colors that I chose for my ink blending. Now once I filled it with sequins, then I can remove that final release paper from my adhesive and then fold that last edge into place. So that gives me this really cute little shaker card. I love this. And then that white area that we created at the bottom of our panel, that's going to be the perfect highlight spot for my sentiment to sit. So my sentiment I'm going to pop up with some foam tape, and I'm using black 3D foam squares from Simon Says Stamp. I chose the black because you actually won't see the adhesive then from the sides of the card, which I love. So I'm going to layer this down along the bottom of my card panel. And then I decided to add a touch of ribbon. I really was entranced by that blue tone that is in some of the sequins from that Garden Bloom mix. And so I thought that would be the perfect excuse to add a touch of blue to the card. So I used a sheer blue ribbon that I had in my stash, and I wrapped that around my card, tied it into a nice little bow, and that gave this card the perfect finishing touch. I just love this. It's fun and cute, but it adds a nice little touch of elegance and brings that blue into the card. I then just glued this panel onto an A2 card so we get that nice white border trim around the edges, which looks very nice, and that mats the card quite beautifully. So that's going to complete the edge-to-edge shaker card that I made using these new products from Simon Says Stamp's Cheering For You release. I love how this card turned out, and I really enjoyed being able to play with this new stencil that I designed. It's really fun. You can customize it with any colors you want. Of course, these are sunflowers, but you could change up the colors and create your own combinations. I hope you have fun trying it out. If you're interested in any of the products that I used today, you can find them all linked down in the video description or over on my blog. I appreciate that you stopped by and watched this video. Don't forget to come back on Saturday, which is July 27th, because I'm actually participating in Simon Says Stamp's Cheering For You release blog hop that day. So I'll have another video for you, which has another project. It'll actually be 2 cards using an ink smushing technique, which I love doing. So I hope you'll come back for that. It's always fun to get inky. So stay tuned. Until then, I will see you very soon, but have a wonderful day in the meantime.